potatoes and like, you know how to eat.
Okay. So I want to make sure I get you guys out earlier than I did last time, because I know we ran right up to the bell, and I don't want that to happen again. So the purpose of today is you guys should have seen Mr. Smilak's glorious physics 4th period, so you guys have some observations and data as to what our goals were and what our look-fors were, because the whole structure of this part of the lesson study will be debriefing what we saw in Mr. Smilak's class in connection to our goal. And then, you can sit wherever you like, but you will be part of this as well. And the whole goal will be talking about what student outcomes did we see, what did we see the teacher do that caused the student outcomes to happen, and then we'll all create next steps for ourselves as to what we can try and implement next week to continue to try and meet our goal of having students critique the reasoning of others, using academic vocabulary. Just got a hand on the way in. So our objectives, Mr. Lovato, will you be the first one?
Analyze data and discuss implications for student learning from the observation.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, will you be the second one?
Reflect on your own strategy in student learning.
And Mr. Smilak, the third one?
Identify next steps in this upcoming week.
Yeah, because that's the big thing, guys, is we all tried something out once, we saw a teacher try it out, so we're all going to come up with next steps that you're going to try next week, and we'll tag a different person that will observe, or I'll go tape them and we'll watch them. So that way we'll have sort of a 2-week cycle of trying out these rigor strategies and adjusting to try and make it better. Because then the week after is our next partial leap week, where in our partial leap observation, I2 is one of the indicators that we're guaranteed to be evaluated on every single time. So we have another week to try out another rigor strategy before you guys actually get evaluated on the I2 rigor on the week of November 9th. Okay. So the first thing, this is Miss Banks, just getting us back to our goal. Just more like we remind us what our goal is.
Students will be able to critique the reasoning of others verbally or in writing using academic vocabulary.
So when we're debriefing the observation, we want to make sure that we're only focusing on the goal that we had and the look-fors we set out. So the look-fors that we want to sort of talk about to see if it happened or not are that the teacher provided some sort of accountable talk. There was a gradual release of like what critiquing looked like. Just grab the hand on the Williams Krause, where we maybe saw a teacher model. There's praise in addition to the critique, so what good was there, what needs to change. Clear expectations for collaboration and critiquing, and some rubric or criteria of success, so students knew how to critique each other or what good critiques looked like. That's what we sort of established when we were together. So the first round that we're going to do is just, you're going to process what did you see in the observation video of Mr. Smilak's 4th period physics. So you guys are going to take 3 minutes to individually and silently brainstorm the data or the observations of student actions that you would like to share. And you're going to do that on round 1 on your note catcher. Okay? So, and just to make sure that this is clear, this is stating a summary of objective data and observations. There's no interpretation. There's no, if he had done this, it would have been better. I would have done. There's no opinions. There's no evaluation. The first round is strictly objective data. This many students were talking. I saw these boys using these words. I saw this support. I saw like objective data of what we saw students doing. So take 3 minutes and write down what objective data did you see in the students in connection for our look-fors. So I'll put the look-fors back up because that's the data that I want us to talk about.
I was not the video.
All right, silently, what student data and student things did you see that indicated the goal in our look-fors?
It's not my fault. It's
So I'm going to chart out what you guys, the data you guys would like to share, and we're going to do it in sort of just a whip around manner. So each person just share one or two of the things that you just wrote down that you saw in connection to our rigor goal and the look-forwards that we'd established, making sure we're just talking about the student action, so what we saw students do. And who would like to start? Mr. Morland?
The students were using the clear expectations that were set up for collaboration.
Ms. Filburn?
They're doing real world problems, so like cold life.
Ms. Matthews?
All students were completing the assigned work.
Mr. Paul?
Strategy of one-on-one was used.
Mr. Electa?
For during the classwork, I saw students sharing thoughts and ideas when solving the assignment.
So we saw some sharing of ideas during, you do, I'll say. Ms. Krause?
To add on to that, when students were sharing ideas, I saw a couple of them pulling like evidence from the question to validate what they were saying, or to gather pull different facts from the work that found on the student.
Okay. So they were using evidence in their reasoning? Mr. Lovato?
Only one I really have that's not already up there is like, instead of like this smile, it's using positive narration with the kids.
Okay, which we'll get to in the next round because we're just looking at student things. Okay. Another thing that I saw was that, well, it seemed that the four boys up front were engaged in sharing each other's reasoning throughout the entire class, whereas other groups were not the entire class. But I would say that the four boys up front were constantly sharing like sharing and critiquing each other.
And anyone else?
Any other student data points that we didn't capture up here? Okay, so these are all things that we saw, yeah, they were using the collaboration expectations. Real world, we saw students engage with the 1-1-1, sharing ideas, okay. So, now the next part is in the next little section, or it might be on the back, round 2, is what was the impact on student learning? So we just talked about what student outcomes we saw. So now take a minute to think about the implications that it has on the rigor in student learning. But specifically, I want you guys to take a minute and write down what did the teacher do that set up and caused those student actions that we just listed. So in the video, what did Mr. Smilak do? What were the structures? What did he do that actually caused us to see all of these things? So now, what were the teacher actions? About 30 more seconds. Okay, so we'll wrap up your thought. We'll do another whip around, and we'll chart out what was Mr. Smilak doing? What did the teacher do to cause the student outcomes and the actual student observations we just listed? Mr. Morlak, can we start with you again?
Yeah, I think everything he did up until the assignment was scaffolded to support the students.
So using our look for language, we saw a gradual release.
Yeah.
Ms. Filburn?
He he was cold calling and praising students with like positive narration.
Ms. Matthews?
We talked before about the real world application, and that was on our thing as well. Good problem sets.
Yeah, real world, Mr. Hall?
Having the answers on the wall made them reflect about their answers sexually.
The hints for the odd numbers?
So he used and encouraged students to use academic vocabulary.
Can you tell me how?
So he was asking students what is the units for acceleration, for instance. And
So like verbally being like, continue like to push for academic vocab, okay? And Ms. Krause?
I think it's, I don't know if it's a separate point, but just on the gradual release, how he had 60 seconds of independent and 60 seconds together, 30 seconds, and then like it went down in time to 30 seconds.
Right, and that was the 1-1-1, even if it wasn't exactly 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, the 1-1-1 strategy of like processing and the gradual release. Just a lot of,
He was, teachers walking around giving positive feedback to students, assisting with their questions.
circulating and providing feedback.
Yeah.
Okay. And the one other thing that hasn't been mentioned is it was very clear to students that they could use the resource sheet, which had a lot of like formulas and information, it seemed.
Also around the room, like at
Yeah,
one point,
the hints for the odd numbers around.
but there was even one point, that girl stood up and used, I don't know if it was
The
a
word
different
wall.
sheet. Yeah, it was like a word wall type thing, yeah.
So you're talking about Jessica.
Yeah, sounds
Jessica
right.
was an absent until before, so she had missed all the vocab.
Ah, okay. But she was using, you forced her to use that resource as opposed to just giving her the answer.
And the other thing, I did see the criteria for success. He had the 3-point rubric to get the response. You had to write the formula that was being used. You had to substitute into the formula with units. Then you had to show your work. So there was sort of like a 3-point sort of like checklist of success. And it sounded like that was a routine that had already been in his class for quizzes and assessments, and that was sort of like, you know that I graded on 3 points, and these are how you get all 3 points. Is there anything else that Mr. Smilak did that set this up? There's one other that I just remembered. The 2 before me, I thought was the main collaboration structure or the critiquing structure. Like before you ask me a question, you have to ask 2 people around you. So the 2 before me idea. Okay. So now we hear from the host.